This is episode 96 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Travis King. Travis is a husband, dad, entrepreneur who has gotten into the world of land flipping. He's personally completed with his wife, Becca, hundreds of land flips and now operates a coaching and educational service business for other people who want to get into land investing. He's done over 1,000 one-on-one coaching calls. I'm excited to talk to him. Travis, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'll get ready to talk to a land fanatic and a land evangelist. So
Yeah. But I think that's a good thing. And we're going to talk about how you got to like your asset class that you like. But before we get there, because I know we're just talking in the pre-call, when was the first time where you were involved in real estate in any way?
yeah, well, the funny thing, so the ironic thing, I guess, growing up is my dad subdivided land kind of on the side, right? So my dad actually owned rock quarries. So I grew up working in rock quarries. All right. So I know work. I know what real work
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
Right. But he actually bought and subdivided land growing up. So that was like how I was introduced, but it wasn't, like anybody, you don't want to do what your parents do, right? So I did JV with my dad on a deal. I mean, this is 19 years old, 1999. I JV'd on a subdivide deal with my dad, a land deal. It did really well. But then I decided, I kind of wanted to go the house route. So I spent, 2000 to 2008, which will sound, 2008 should strike a,
There's a red light there
for somebody. But chasing houses. And then after crashing and burning, spent a couple of years regrouping and then kind of found land and land flipping as a business model back in 2013.
Oh, okay. And when you were chasing houses, what was that? Was that flipping? Because I know you were a contractor during that time as well.
Yeah, no, at that time, it was just the plan was just buy and hold rentals, It was the problem was just being, I think, young and naive to the extent of my education. Jonathan was honestly like, if I'm being like just candid, it was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then going out there and getting, kind of using it as some motivation, but not really studying the book because the content's there, the knowledge is there, but it was more, for me, it was more just like jumping in young and naive.
Yeah.
Right. But the approach was, the idea was just to buy a rental house every 2 years, and kind of use the W-2s. And thankfully, I guess now in hindsight, right, with the whole market crashing in the '08 recession, it had me rethink the whole strategy, which every 2 years buying a rental, the problem with that is you're stuck at your W-2, needing those pay stubs. So it was probably a good thing for me in hindsight. And I say that with a lot of distance from now and the '08 bubble.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of allowed me to kind of rethink what asset class and my approach.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like, you always saw real estate, it seems, as like a potential asset class and at least supplementary income. What was the turning point to know like, okay, I really want to get out of the 9 to 5 and I think I can do this full time? Did that come during the land flipping time when you figured out land was the asset?
It's always kind of felt like an inner conflict. I was only a couple of years into my corporate career when the outfit I worked for got bought by an investment company. And then they started to lay people off and clean things up and then resold the company, and it kind of at an early age, it kind of took the wind out of my sails, but two, it also like exposed me to, like how quickly things can change, really good jobs with really good salaries can go away, just like that. So for me, I think that was, again, with a lot of years behind me, it was a good thing that happened as a blessing at the time, because it made me realize like, hey, you kind of have to build your own empire and your own income stream outside of an employer. Right. And as I started to research that, self-made wealth, self-made millionaires, I kept hearing 9 out of 10 millionaires got there from real estate. And then as I dug into it, I was like, okay, maybe it's only actually 7 out of 10. But at the same time, the common denominator was like real estate investing. And so I decided essentially that was going to be my avenue. right? And then it just became within that kind of, umbrella of real estate, like what asset class are there the least barriers to entry, or, what is a good opportunity for me with my age and my resources
Yeah.
and needs and everything. And that's kind of what led me to land.
Yeah, and I think one thing that maybe this was your journey too, that you find out with land, then the better you get at the due diligence and like what you do in between buying it and then putting it back on the market can drastically increase your profit base. And people don't
Yeah.
understand that because they just think, well, it's just a piece of raw land. Like, okay, well, what if you do perk test and then it's like ready to build right away? Are these things that these are the things that as you went along, you're like, ooh, now we can make more money. Takes a little bit more to do, but then the scale's even higher.
Yeah, the first problem we had, the challenge we had was like, once we realized we got good at kind of like the acquisitions part of this, because
Yeah, yeah,
we no longer used auctions. We were now using, data sources and then direct mail
yeah.
to target off market vacant land. It was kind of is what the strategy is: off market vacant land with direct mail. But then the problem became capital, right? Like hey, the challenge was as we were doing these bigger deals, we would have to use our own money. We'd buy a deal and we'd need to wait for the deal to sell before
Yeah,
we could
yeah,
bring that money back in. And you know how limiting that is. But in a young real estate investor's journey, you've kind of got to hit that ceiling or that governor before you understand that, hey, unless I come into the game with a whole war chest of money, I can't scale this or grow this until I bring in some outside capital. So that was kind of something at like year 3 that we started to figure out: to do bigger deals, we've got to bring in some additional money,
yeah,
beyond our own. And then what you're saying, value adding, right? Like adding value, where early on with the cheap properties, we were very much like velocity focused, kind of like a house wholesaler's always
yeah,
like, hey,
yeah, yeah.
quick
Quick.
nickel, quick nickel, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then you start to realize you're leaving a lot of money on the table, right,
yeah,
Jonathan? So
yeah, yeah,
for us, like you're saying, with the improvement, it became like, well, maybe we just spend $1,500 and have a landscaper go out there and mow the lot, clear the lot.
yeah.
Maybe we hire a drone photographer, and the pictures are better, right? And we get top dollar instead of taking a discounted price. So we started to do that, and then we even started to look at things like subdividing. Like when we would have a large acreage property come in,
Yeah,
we would recognize in the surroundings there's much smaller lots around, and we saw an opportunity. And then we understood the economics of like splitting the parcel, not adding jogging trails or sidewalks or infrastructure, but I mean
right.
just literally splitting the parcel. We started to see how that essentially forced appreciation.
Yeah,
And I've put on roofs, I've painted houses, I've
right.
built decks, I've built sweat equity. But when I was first like became aware of subdividing, and just by splitting the parcel, we force appreciation. To me, Jonathan, it was like alchemy. It was magic. I
Yeah,
was like, I've used paint sprayers. I've been on the roof. I've
yeah,
worked. I know work, right? Like
yeah,
this was incredible. Like we force more appreciation just by subdividing a raw vacant land parcel than I ever had with a house, right?
yeah. I always think of like testing and getting it kind of build ready, but there's something else that you said that I think is great. The fact of turning land into a better product outward in terms of drone footage and like mowing it or clearing it, getting some trees down just so people can see it better. That can literally 4 to like 10x your money on land versus what else is sitting there. I always think of this in the context of rental properties. Like people, they get a rental property and then they put it up for rent and they just put one picture from their cell phone. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's just bad marketing.
Yeah.
And it really
Yeah.
I didn't think of it too much in land, but I know from looking at land, like I see
Oh,
one picture. If I saw
with
a
a
drone picture, it's so much easier for me to buy.
you say see a one picture and it's got like the county
Bushes.
GIS parcel boundary,
Right.
and it's terrible quality. It's like
Yeah.
someone used
Or
their
just
cell
like a
phone.
picture of like just trees and like overgrown shrubbage, like that you basically
Yeah.
saying you can't even walk the property because you can't get
Yeah.
in. And like
So
then you mow it, take drone footage, like that's easy because people don't need to go on site for land. Like it's all right there.
that's really what's changed thing. There was kind of like some, and more so early on than now. You still have some old timers that might say, well, land doesn't move or land doesn't sell, but a lot of that stigma is kind of pre-internet residue, right? If you will,
Yeah.
meaning as soon as things like Zillow came on, even eBay, like Zillow, land.com, Realtor, Redfin, like as soon as these national platforms that are also mobile apps
Yeah.
allowed people in any state or country to start searching land, it opened things up.
Yeah.
Prior to that, historically, I think land was much more local, so like people would struggle with the resale of it because it was
Yeah.
just the local buyer pool.
Right. You're like putting
And
it in the newspaper or something.
yes, yeah, you're in the penny saver,
Right. And then it was
Well,
Craigslist, which is like, the land next to like someone selling a xylophone. So
internet has changed, as internet has just increased that buyer pool or eyeballs and views on the properties,
yeah.
which is, unless you're just buying the land to capture equity, if the strategy is actually to resell and realize the gain or profit, then like you need dispositions, you need views, you need listings, you need to
Yeah.
resell. So I feel like the internet, all these listing platforms, especially mobile friendly ones, have really
Yeah.
opened up things to where days on market is significantly reduced.
For sure.
It kind of allows you to buy and sell, not just in your own backyard,
Yeah.
but in more markets than I feel like you probably previously could in the 80s or 90s.